Yeah, there's one in Hooksett. It's a super Kenai.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June 28th, 2017 Merrimack Zoning Board of Adjustments meeting. The next meeting will be July 26th, 2017. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, great. Rich, if you could read the preamble, please.
Sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will proceed with the petitions in the order they are listed on the agenda unless the board deems it appropriate to take a petition out of order. State law and local ordinances set out the criteria that must be met in order for this board to grant a request. The minimum requirements are outlined on the form provided by the Community Development Office, and the petitioner should proceed with this format to provide adequate justification for the board to grant the request. The chair will then open the meeting to hear testimony either for or against the request. All discussion will be between the speaker and the board. Please be respectful of all, and in the interest of time, refrain from repeating previous testimony. No new documentation will be accepted by the board for consideration this evening, but the board reserves the right to ask for additional testimony at any time. After hearing the facts from all parties regarding a petition, the chairman will close the public hearing and the board will deliberate and vote on the request before moving on to the next petition. Please turn off all cell phones and pagers.
Thank you, Rich. Anybody planning on speaking this evening, if you could please stand to be sworn in. If you're going to speak for or against a petition, whatever the case would be, if you're going to come up and speak, I need you to stand. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right. A couple of housekeeping items. When you come up, we'll read the petition. When your petition's read, you come up, can you please sign in the on the clipboard, and also make sure that the microphones, there is a bright green light is lit when you speak. So that being said, our first petition for this evening, we do have a full board. So our first petition is Apple Development Limited Partnership, petitioner owner variance under section 17.08.4 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of 2 temporary ground signs, whereas 1 temporary sign is permitted to permit the temporary signs for longer than 30 days and for signs of 80 square feet and 137.50 square feet respectively, whereas 32 square feet is allowed. The parcel is located at 360 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial and Aquifer Conservation Planned Residential Development Overlay and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts, Tax Map 4D-3 Lot 001, case number 2017-19. Is there anybody here from Apple Development? Oh, please, please come down. Make sure your mic's on. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Derek Glick. I'm an attorney at the Soloway and Hollis Law Office, and I'm here tonight with Mr. Robert Barsamian, and we are both representing Apple Development for the 3 variance applications that you'll be hearing tonight. In very broad brush, all 3 of them relate to signage, and all 3 of them relate to signage for the same site. This is the Merrimack site, but it's formerly known, I guess, as Shaw's Plaza. I think all of you are familiar with it. With our 3 applications, we've provided renderings of the signs, trying to show them to scale so you get a sense of what it looks like on the site. And ideally, what we're talking about in this first application is a request for 2 temporary signs, one out front in the parking lot area and one out back. The first in the parking lot area out front would be visible from Route 3 and is intended to catch the eye of those driving in that area. And it is similar to the one in the back, which is trying to catch the eye of those passing on the Everett Turnpike. The purpose of that sign really is to catch the eye of potential tenants. My client was before the planning board, I think just this last month, and he was conditionally approved to completely redevelop the site. And part of the temporary signage request is simply to help him try and land tenants so that he can do that. At this point, it's completely vacant. There are no tenants there. And this is basically a once every 30 or 40 year complete redevelopment of the project. So that's the first application. I know that's what's being discussed.
We're gonna take them one at a time.
Fair enough.
So, because if something should not go through, you can make a decision how you want to proceed.
Understood.
So, with this first petition, you have you did the 5 points of law. If
Correct.
you could, and I do appreciate the overview on this. If you could go through each point of law and stop after each point, if there's any questions, the board may direct to you.
Fair enough. With
Thank you.
respect to this first variance for temporary signs, we did provide a written response to each of the 5 criteria. The first of which is granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. I won't read through my entire answer, but the thrust of it is as follows. That in this case, we have a unique property, one that abuts 2 major thoroughfares, Route 3 and the Everett Turnpike. It is also a very large commercial development, 77,000 square feet of retail space, and what's been proposed and approved conditionally by the planning board includes 2 pad sites in the area of the parking lot now, which would add another 4,000 square foot building and a second 650 square foot building. It has a very large parking field. And what's unique in this property is that it doesn't have a center entrance. It actually has 2 entrances, one on either end of it. In this case, with the renderings which we presented, what we wanted to show you is the sign would be roughly in the middle of the parking lot area out near the roadway. And we've had our sign person do a rendering that shows it to scale with some people standing next to it so you have a sense of its size. And on this first point, the thing that we wanted to point out is the signs, what we're trying to do is, in particular with this, all of them, but in this temporary signs as well, is make them proportional to the size of the building. This is a very large development, and we want it to be able to catch folks' eye. So here what we've essentially said is this doesn't change the character of the neighborhood. This is proportional to the size of the development being proposed. And they are temporary signs that the intention is they are only up while we're leasing, trying to get tenants in the building. And once Mr. Barsamian has done that, those signs will come down. They're not intended to stay there in a permanent fashion in any way. So we also will abide by all setbacks, and our argument and position is they will not in any way threaten the public health, safety, or welfare. So that was my response to the public interest portion.
Any questions from the board? Lynn? What's that? Number 2, please.
Number 2 is the spirit of the ordinance is observed. And here what we pointed out is this development sits in a commercial district. And the primary function of that district under the ordinance is, quote, to serve regional and/or local shopping service needs. And here what we're hoping to do exactly that. We're trying to carry out the spirit of the ordinance by allowing this commercial development to proceed and to further serve regional and local services. It's important for us to have signs both on the front and the back of the building to try and capture some of that traffic on the Everett Turnpike. As will be discussed with some of the other applications in more detail, in this particular instance, you have a development that is really somewhat off the beaten path. And we're trying to make sure we let tenants know that they can come here, that it will be observed and recognized, and that they'll have signage, permanent signs once we get to that stage, that will draw potential customers to the site. So that was my response to the second criteria.
Any questions from the board? Number 3, please.
Number 3 is the granting of the variance would do substantial justice. We state that it does, and it will allow the redevelopment of what is now a dated and completely empty commercial building. I'm not familiar with all the history Mr. Barsamian is, but I understand the building has been either vacant or not quite full for some time. And the idea here is to try and bring those tenants in, and ideally Mr. Barsamian would like those signs up and down as quickly as possible. He'd love to fill this thing up so we can have them come down. So that was substantial justice. It would allow the redevelopment of a somewhat of an eyesore property in town.
Questions? Number 4, please.
Number 4, for the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. It's our position that actually the signs and allowing the property to be redeveloped will actually increase the property values, and it's going to revitalize the area. As you'll see from the renderings, I think our position is that it's going to be very tastefully done. I believe the planning board believed that, or they wouldn't have granted approval for it. And the signage here, we're trying to make it cohesive with the development, seem like another part of the building. And so it all flows together for traffic. And for here, the idea is the property values will ultimately not be reduced, but once we get the signs up, hopefully get tenants in and leased, it will revitalize the area and actually increase property values and provide services to those in the area.
Questions on number 4? Number 5, please.
Number 5 is the unfair hardship test, and part 1 of that is that no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application to this particular property. I did note that the general purpose of the ordinance is to ensure there's not a proliferation of large signs throughout town. We completely understand that. Here, we're only asking for 2 temporary signs. Only 1 sign will be seen in any significant way from Route 3, and 1 would significantly be seen from the back of the property Everett Turnpike. We believe, again, they're proportional in size. Yes, they're a little bit larger than allowed, and maybe somewhat significantly so, but here you have a very large development which is going to have a lot of tenants, and when you look at it in proportion to this very large building, we think that it meets this unique situation where you have a once in every few decades makeover of a significant property that essentially has not quite been abandoned, but is pretty close. And with respect to the second provision, the proposed use is a reasonable one. We say that it is. Again, it's visible to 2 major thoroughfares. We need the large signage in the back because the traffic would be growing at a faster speed limit than typical. And on the front side, we want to make sure folks can catch their attention because it's been unfilled for quite some time now, and we want to really let people know that it's available to be leased. So we believe it is a reasonable use, and we believe given the unique nature of the redevelopment and the property and where it sits, it meets this variance criteria as well.
Do you feel he met number 5 for sections? Okay, great. Any questions from the board?
I just have one that's out of curiosity. Just out of curiosity, how many units are going to be in that development?
Mr. Barsamian?
Hi, my name is Rob Barsamian. That would be helpful.
There you go.
Hi, my name's Rob Barsamian. So, you know, it could vary a little bit, but right now we have it programmed for about 10 units.
Okay.
But depending on a couple of the people that we're talking with, it could be 8, it could be 10, but I don't think it'll be more than 12, let's say, at the most, and somewhere in between.
All right, thank you. It was just a curiosity question.
Yeah.
Other questions? Concerns? Okay. I didn't drive around the back of it. Can you see the highway from the back of that building? Or are you going to have to clear trees for those signs?
I've been in back, it was a couple of weeks ago now, but the property actually sits a little lower, and there's a sort of a berm or a hill off the back side of it. I can let Rob, Mr. Barsamian, speak to that if you wish.
I mean, I think he's right. So it does, you know, the grade there is pretty intense, and where we're placing the sign, you're not going to have to clear any trees out to see the sign.
Oh, just curious.
It's not a berm, it's a hill.
It's
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
It's a
It's-
straight hill
yeah,
that comes
yeah.
down, and to get any kind of visibility from the turnpike, you need a sign up on that hill.
Yeah.
On the hill, that's right.
Yeah, in some of the submissions we provided, there's a photograph of the back area next to one of the renderings, and I think you can see the hill as it goes up, and you'll see a cell tower, sort of, it's not on Mr.
Okay, yeah,
Barsamian's
no,
property,
I
kind of
know.
beyond it.
Okay.
It's in that vicinity, but closer in the location picture to us.
Any other questions, concerns from the board? Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anybody that'd like to speak in favor of this petition? Okay. Is there anybody that'd like to speak against this petition? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Questions, comments from the board? Any input? Motions?
I'd like to make a motion to grant Apple Development Limited Partnership variance under section 17.08.4 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of 2 temporary ground signs, whereas 1 temporary sign is permitted, to permit the temporary signs for longer than 30 days, longer than 30 days, and for signs of 80 square feet and 137.5 square feet respectively, whereas 32 square feet is allowed. Parcels located at 360 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial aquifer conservation, planned residential development overlay, and elderly housing overlay districts, tax map 4D-3, lot 001, case 2017-19, with the staff recommendation that the signs shall be removed from the site within 30 days of the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the new restaurant buildings, or within 30 days of the completion of the renovations to the existing building, whichever occurs second.
Second.
Seconded by Fran. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that is 5-0-0. Excellent. Let me read the next petition in for the record. The next petition is Apple Development Limited Partnership Petitioner Owner Variance under Section 17.10.3 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of two permanent signs of 210.32 square feet and 253 square feet respectively, whereas 32 square feet is allowed. The parcel is located at 360 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation Planned Residential Development Overlay and Elderly Housing Overlay Tax Map 4D-3 Lot 001, case number 2017-20. Just take the same format as before, and we'll just get into record.
Fair enough. So in this case, we are asking for two permanent signs to be allowed on the property. And the best way to get started, I believe, if you look at, and right behind the renderings is a small version, 11 by 17 version of the site plan. And in that site plan, what you will see is we are asking for a particular sign at the north entrance of the property on Route 3. And we are also asking for a permanent sign in the back to essentially replace the temporary one. Once it's leased up, this would now say basically come shop here. So those are the two signs we're referring to in this instance. I'll just note the next application actually refers to a sign on the southern entrance. It's a little unique in that it actually is located on an abutting property. It's been there for years, but through an easement that's there. We'll talk about that one in a moment. So now we know where we are. You've seen renderings of what the signs are going to look like. Part of the reason they're as large as they are is that we are trying to stay in the same architectural scheme as the buildings, again, to try and tie them into the buildings so that they are not simply your standard, mundane, routine sign. We want them to really be visually distinctive, and that's the goal of the exercise. So let's go to the criteria. The first criteria, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Here again, I note that this property is unique. It is a very large retail development of 77,000 square feet. I won't repeat myself and all of that, but what I will say is that here, if you've driven by the property, there's not an entrance in the middle like you would see in a lot of properties. Instead, there's an entrance on either end. With this particular variance request, we're seeking the sign to be on the northern entrance, as shown in the diagrams, and one on the back side of the parcel. Again, this is a unique parcel because of its size, because of its commercial nature, and because it abuts two major thoroughfares, Route 3 and Everett Turnpike. And again, once the signs are in place, you really won't be able to see much of one at the same time you see the other. You'll be able to see the back one a little bit from Route 3, but not much. And you won't be able to see the front sign from the Everett Turnpike. So really, on the two roads, you're only going to be able to see one of the signs. So again, because of the unique nature of this property and because it will be unobtrusive, aesthetically pleasing, and in the same context and architectural nature of the buildings, we think that the size is proportional and even though larger than allowed, would not be detrimental to the area. And it's in the public interest to allow the motorists who will be traveling to find out who is in this complex so they know whether or not they're going to make a turn or not. We're trying to make it large enough where they're not squinting at the fine print to find out who's a tenant in the complex. So that's for number one.
Any questions? Number two, please.
Number two, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. We say it is, and again, we understand the idea of the ordinance is to avoid visual clutter and overly obtrusive signs that alter the character of the neighborhood. Again, I note, just as in the temporary signs, we have a property that is located in the general commercial district, which is to serve the regional and local shopping and service needs. Again, the signage we think is appropriate, and with respect to the regional service needs, we think that also supports the sign on the back side of the lot, so that a lot of folks who may not be from Merrimack would still be aware of the development and still be able to shop there. even though it's not near a particular entrance or exit, it'll at least get them there based on the signage. That's number 2.
So, question that I have.
Yes.
So the signs up front and the signs up, you're also talking about the sign out on the highway as well?
That's correct. And yes.
Both lit signs? Obviously, sounds like it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Actually, this only addresses the north entrance sign,
Okay.
not the south. So it's the north entrance, and the highway sign is on this variance.
That's what
Correct.
this
Thank
one
you.
is. To permit 2 signs.
We're not,
Oh, the high, you're
we're
you're
not
talking
talking
highway.
about the one at the southbound entrance.
That's-
We're
yeah, no,
talking
that's the next
north one and the highway.
The one that was by the old cleaners, and then
Correct.
the one that's on the highway, yep. No,
Correct.
that's what my
you.
understanding was as well. Okay. Thank you.
Number 3?
Yes, please.
Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. We articulate that it's reasonable under the circumstances because it will allow for the significant and hopefully successful redevelopment of a very difficult commercial property. Our goal here again is to, we don't build signage simply to have signage. The goal is to make this a successful development and something that the town will be proud of. And hopefully we'll draw a lot of traffic and provide a lot of services to the area. Also, we mention again that substantial justice would be done because we want maximum clarity and queuing of drivers, both at the front and the back, to let them know the property's there, and especially on Route 3, to make sure it gives them plenty of time to turn in if that's the property they're looking for, if that's the tenant that they're looking for. I believe that was it for number 3.
Questions? All set, Lynn? Okay.
Uh,
You shook your head, that's why. Number 4, please.
Number 4, this is the one, again, for the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. Again, I don't need to repeat myself here. Again, this is a redevelopment of a very difficult and basically empty commercial lot. The signage is necessary to be able to get the tenants to be convinced that they're going to be able to draw traffic in, and we want it to be successful. And frankly, given the unique location where it is, not near an on-ramp or off-ramp for the Everett Turnpike, and somewhat removed from the more commercially oriented areas, the signage is important here. But it's also going to be tasteful and consistent with, in proportion with the building. So our view is this will actually increase property values by redeveloping what's been blighted is too strong of a word, but an empty commercial lot that certainly isn't, doesn't have the same value as an active one that's providing services.
Question? Anybody? Okay,
Number 5?
Yep.
On the unnecessary hardship one again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but bottom line is here, you have a very unique property between two very high-trafficked roads that we need to make sure we have signage that's appropriate to allow people to know that it's there and that they can get in a safe manner. Here, we're trying to be proportional in size to the large development, and this property is unique because of its size, 77,000 square feet, and it's multiple tenants all on one site. This is not like a site where you have multiple lots of single tenants where you can have each have a sign. Here you have to put them all on one, which is the reason for the larger sign. And then finally, the proposed use is a reasonable one. And again, it is, we want to make sure that we have adequate and easily readable signage that benefits the public, not only by fostering the redevelopment, but also making sure that they can see what's there and make sure they can make safe turning into the development in plenty of time. So that's criteria 5.
Questions on that? Okay. Any other questions for the petitioners? Okay. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Is there anybody that'd like to speak for this petition? Anybody like to speak against? We'll close the public hearing. Comments from the board, questions, motions?
I'd just like to make one comment and say thank you for coming to Merrimack and trying to redevelop that dead area. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Question, anything else? Comments, questions, motions?
I'd like to make the motion to grant Apple Development Limited Partnership variance under Section 17.10.3 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of 2 permanent signs of 210.32 square feet and 253 square feet respectively, whereas 32 square feet is allowed. Parcels located at 360 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation Planned Residential Development Overlay, and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts, Tax Map 4D-3, Lot 001, Case 2017-20.
Second.
Second, Fran. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0-0. And the last one, and again, I do appreciate you allowing us to get this all on the record. So, last one, and we'll have that one.
I'll be shorter this time, I promise.
That's okay. So our next petition is Apple Development Limited Partnership petitioner and East Ridge Condominiums owner, variance under section 17.10.3 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of a replacement ground sign of 210.32 square feet, whereas 64 square feet is allowed. The parcel is located at the East Ridge Road in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation Planned Residential Development Overlay and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts, Tax Map 4D-4, Lot 067, case number 2017-21.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll direct your attention again to the site plan, just so we're all talking about the same sign. I put it in the back of this application packet, too, for the permanent signs. This sign that we're talking about in this application is the one that will be on the southern entrance of the development. And as you pointed out, this sign is actually located on an abutter's property. We provided the town with the easement that my client has for that sign. It's actually been in place, I think, since 1982. It was there for when the site was previously developed. So what we are asking here, though, is it's a little bit unique in that we're actually replacing an existing sign. The sign that we are proposing is the one that you've seen in the other renderings. It's just going to be identical to the one on the opposite end of the property. We want to make sure we have signs on both ends so that people can go to both entrances and not be directed only to one. And also it's important to allow traffic to use both entrances and make sure they know that they can get to the site in both places. So that's part one. The other part I would point out is the sign that is currently there. We've roughed out as approximately 150 square feet as it stands. So we're really just replacing that sign and putting a slightly larger one in. Even though 64 square feet is allowed, there already is a pre-existing sign roughly in the same spot of 150 square feet. So we'll go to criteria number one. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Here, again, we're trying to avoid the clutter. We are putting two signs at the two entrances, but those are 800 feet apart, and we think it's important to do so for clarity for the public as to you can get into the development on both ends. Again, we're replacing a pre-existing older and less attractive sign that's already 150 square feet that is in excess of the size allowed by the ordinance. And again, the size of this sign is appropriate in light of the large size of the development, and it basically is proportional and again consistent with the architectural components of the project. That's number one.
Question. Number two, please.
Number two, the spirit of the ordinance will be observed. Again, I reiterate that this is a general commercial district. The whole point of the exercise is in this district is to allow for local shopping centers, and here we're trying to do exactly that. This sign meets, it is in the spirit of the ordinance and is consistent with the commercial development, which is what's expected in this area.
Number two. Number three.
Number three, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Again, we say it's reasonable under the circumstances to allow for the successful redevelopment. It's reasonable under these circumstances and do substantial justice because we have two entrances that are significant distance apart. We want to make sure there's clear they can enter both. And finally, again, it's proportional to the size of the development and is replacing an already large sign of 150 square feet.
Questions. Number four.
Number four, for the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. First, there already is a sign there that is significantly the same size in roughly the same place as to where this one is going to be located. So here we're going to take what is an older sign and improve it, put in a nice aesthetically pleasing sign, one that is consistent with the architecture and one that we hope will bring a revitalized commercial development to the area instead of what's currently there.
Tony, did you have a question?
No,
Oh, sorry. Oh, you had your hand. Number 5, please.
Number 5, unnecessary hardship. There's no fair and substantial relationship between the general purpose of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision here. Particularly in this instance, we are replacing an already existing sign. Granted, it's slightly larger, but we're doing that for architectural reasons to make sure it's consistent with the building. And again, we think it is going to provide better visual cueing for customers to make sure they can get into the development. And it's a reasonable one. Again, it replaces an existing sign, and we want it to be easily readable to the public. And again, it's 800 feet from the other sign in the front.
Any further questions? Okay. Once again, is there anybody that'd like to speak for this petition? Is there anybody that'd like to speak against this petition? All set. Comments, questions?
We're allowed 64 square feet, but yet we've got 150 there now. Was there a variance granted back then?
I don't believe there was.
They just did it.
I'm assuming that it was different ordinance language back when that sign
Okay.
originally went in. But I would have to research and
That's
see.
all right. So we're only increasing by 25% what's already there, as opposed to the 64 that's allowed by the current ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Motions?
You close, did you close the hearing?
I closed, yeah, I
Oh,
closed.
okay. Wanna do the
Go for
third
3?
one?
Go for the hat
3
trick.
for 3. I motion that we grant Apple Development Limited Partnership and East Ridge Condominiums variance under Section 17.10.3 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of a replacement ground sign of 210.32 square feet, whereas 64 square feet is allowed. Parcels located at East Ridge Road in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation Planned Residential Development Overlay and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts, Tax Map 4D-4, Lot 67, Case 2017-21.
Second. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 500. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you as well for your
Good
time.
luck. Thank you. Next petition, New Hampshire Hydraulics, Inc. petitioner and Tammy J. Inc. owner, variance under Section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a 9,600 square foot addition to an existing structure within 47.8 feet of the front property line, whereas 50 feet is required. The parcel is located at 3 Columbia Circle in the I-1 Industrial Aquifer Conservation and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts, Tax Map 4D-3, lots 025 and 026, case number 2017-22. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening? Make sure your mics are on. If you want to give kind of a real quick, 5,000 foot view of what we're looking to do, and then get into the 5 points, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, my name is Jason Lopez from Keach Nordstrom Associates, and with me is the owner and applicant, Anthony Helvatzis. He owns New Hampshire Hydraulics and is a member of Tammy J. Inc. Quickly, we were before the planning board just, I believe it was a week ago. I received conditional approval for an expansion of a site. As was stated, we have 2 lots, lots 25 and lots 26.
If it's easier, there's a mic over there, a portable mic if you want to stand. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I got it. Lots 25, 1.6 acre lot. Lot 26 is a 1.7 acre lot. They are separate parcels today, each with 200 feet of frontage. The plan is to combine both lots and to one parcel, 400 feet of frontage and 3.3 acres. Business has grown. He is looking to do an expansion. And as part of that, we presented the plan to the planning board to put a 9,000 600 square foot addition off the side of the building. There is a small colored drawing within your package that shows the issue before the board tonight, and that is the front of the existing building is within the current zoning setback, and therefore our addition will also be in front, within that front setback. So a little history on the property. Back in 1971, both lots were created by subdivision. The building was constructed in 1975. At that time, the zoning was general commercial zone with a 30-foot front setback. 1983, there was a lot line adjustment done, which added some of the rear area. So the lots were modified. In 1995, New Hampshire Hydraulics began operating out of this facility. You should back up. Subsequent to the original building construction, Columbia Drive was rezoned as industrial, and that front setback was increased from 30 feet to 50 feet. Back in 2000, there was a previous site plan and zoning adjustment granted for this property. It contemplated expanding this front office area in the front setback, and also a much larger addition to the building. That final site plan was never perfected and received final signatures by the planning board. So we find ourselves now today, he's ready to go, but with a smaller addition than originally contemplated back in 2000.
So by the sound of it, this building was built before the zoning law, or before it was zoned that way, so it was grandfathered in as far as its setbacks.
Correct.
Right. If you want to, if you want to go into the 5 points,
Yeah.
and just stop after each one if we have any questions, please.
Point number one, the variance will not be contrary to public interest. New Hampshire Hydraulics is a permitted use within the industrial zoning district where they are located. The expansion of the facility increases the tax base to the town of Merrimack, and therefore is a benefit to the residents.
Any questions? All right, number 2, please.
The spirit of the ordinance is observed. The existing building was constructed using the appropriate front setback distance when the area was zoned for commercial use. Since then, the zone has been changed to industrial. Now the existing front office space and front facade of the building fall within the 50-foot setback area. Since the existing structure was constructed prior to the current zoning setbacks, those areas are permissible existing non-conforming uses. The proposed addition will require a 2.2-foot reduction in the current front setback of 50 feet. The need for the proposed reduction is due to the location of the existing structure. The 47.8-foot setback will essentially meet the intent of the creation of the 50-foot setback, and the addition will not look out of place in comparison to other structures in the park. Given the existing conditions, it seems reasonable that the proposed 47.8-foot setback would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance.
Questions? Number 3.
Substantial justice is done. It is reasonable for a business to expand within the proper zoning district and thereby continue to increase tax value to the town. As such, granting of this variance would be fair and just to the owner as well as town of Merrimack.
Questions? Number 4.
Values of surrounding properties are not diminished. The Columbia Circle area has a variety of existing commercial and industrial uses, and the expansion of New Hampshire Hydraulics will not adversely affect the values of these surrounding properties. The expansion of the building area will enable the outside stored materials to be relocated inside the building, and thereby improving the existing site conditions.
Questions? Number 5.
Literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. and then bring it on to the points. The plans for the interior setup of the storage, racking, workflow patterns are a driving factor for the required size of the proposed addition. The placement in relationship to the existing structure is driven by the structural column locations and roof line connection. By keeping the structural components of the two buildings in line will have a significant impact on the cost of the building construction. If a variance to the front yard setback for the addition is not granted, there would be significant hardship to the owner, since the effective utilization of the existing and proposed buildings would be impaired. Complicating the building connection would impact the construction budget and would decrease the size of the addition. This would decrease the decrease in the size would limit the amount of outdoor racking that could be brought to the interior space.
Any questions?
What's the roof now? Is it a flat roof?
Sloped.
It is sloped.
It's sloped. Because what I see from the front is, I don't see a roof. I don't see an elevation on the roof. Is it
There-
sloped from front to back?
It's centered, the
Peaked,
main part of
centered.
it's peaked.
That's
very-
on the office section. What about the rest of
No,
it?
the office is this way.
Right.
And the main building is in the center, half goes this way, it's 6 feet wide, half would go this way.
So
and
it's-
half
so it's-
goes
so
to
it's a-
Columbia Circle.
So that's why I don't see a peak when I'm looking at it from the front, other than the office space.
If you went up the hill a little bit and looked, it's.
But if I'm
it's-
standing
it's
on the
not a-
front,
if-
I don't see a peak of any sort.
It's a very, it is a
not a-
pitched roof, but it's very flat.
Yeah,
From
it
the,
is
from
a-
the ground, you
yeah.
wouldn't pick up.
So
a very-
pitched from front to back or side to side?
From Columbia Circle, the main building pitches up to a peak at 30 feet and then goes 30 feet to the back.
Okay, got it. Thank
Okay,
you.
Yeah. And the office is, okay.
Any other questions? Okay. I'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody who'd like to speak against this petition? Excellent. Close the public hearing. Any questions, comments from the board, discussion? Open a motion board. Please.
Under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance, to permit a 9,600 square foot addition to an existing structure within 47.8 feet of the front property line, whereas 50 feet is required. Parcel is located at 3 Columbia Circle in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. Tax maps 4D-3, lot 025 and 026.
Do I have a second? Tony seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 500. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear business is going well. You're going to expand. That's always a good thing. Thank you. All righty. Next one. Next petition. No, you can.
Just so you guys are aware, if you are to start
Tony?
building within the next 30 days, it's at your own discretion because people can appeal. FYI. Thank you. Sorry.
Next petition, hotel at Daniel Webster LLC, petitioner owner, special exception under section 2.02.4E3 of the zoning ordinance to permit an on-site caretaker's residence. The parcel is located at 248 Daniel Webster Highway in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 3D-2, lot 005-01, case number 2017-23. Hi.
How you doing?
Good. Could you state your name and tell us what we're looking at here?
Todd Wilson with Hotel Daniel Webster representing them. Essentially, we're just looking, we have a old meeting space in the hotel that is no longer being used. Since we acquired the property about a year ago, we creating a kind of an affordable extended stay hotel, keeping our rates down, and one of the ways we did that was pull out a lot of the costs, and part of the cost was overnight staff that sat there and did really nothing all night long. So our plan is to try to get an in-house caretaker to stay there more for security, just to kind of keep an eye on things, and late-night check-ins, if people come in after hours to check them in if keys aren't working, or if people get locked out, just someone on site instead of having, have whoever's on call to shoot over there every day.
So you're looking to replace your so instead of having a front desk hotel staff, you have more of a, I don't want to, how's it, super.
Yeah, yeah. Like a manager to stay on site
In-house manager.
instead of having to staff the front desk 24 hours.
Okay.
Question for Jillian. It looks like we're asking for a variance based on parking, but I don't think we need it. So why are we asking for a
It's a
variance here?
special
No.
exception.
Why are we asking for a special exception?
The special exception is for the on-site caretaker's residence. This is a hotel in an industrial district, and special exceptions are allowed for caretaker's residences in an I-1 industrial district.
How would a caretaker's residence differ from just an individual living in that unit on a temporary basis?
The individual would live in that unit on a temporary
But how would it
basis.
differ?
It wouldn't.
So why do we need a special exception?
This will be considered a residential unit as opposed to a hotel unit.
Okay.
I have a question also, real quick. Couldn't the caretaker use one of the rooms as their residence instead of,
They could, with our business model, I mean, we kind of were factoring in on the 129 rooms, so this was something that we thought of after the fact, and it's more of a financial hope to.
So you have a space that's not being utilized, and you want to convert it? as long as-
Yeah, it's this old meeting space that,
is that the one upstairs?
it's on the first floor of the three-story building, closest to the office.
Okay, all right, and the Building 20, it used to be
Correct.
called Building 20?
It's still called Building 20, yes.
On the special exception, there's a couple of points here, A, B, and C.
Yes.
If you could just go through those, can stop after each if there's any questions, but we'd just like to get that on the record, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Point A, specific site is an appropriate location for such a use, and use to determine the overall community development. We're not creating anything different than what's already there. It's, except it's going to be an extra unit that's going to be lived in full-time by the live-in super.
Okay. Question? B?
The use as developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood and shall produce no real estate values in neighboring areas. Again, a lot of people stay there, extended period of time. A lot of people are staying there overnight in kind of a residential setting. It's not really going to impact people staying there.
Okay. C?
There'll be no nuisance or serious hazard of vehicles or pedestrians. There'll be an extra car there at night, just because obviously, most likely whoever stays there will have a car, but we have plenty of parking that shouldn't affect it, and if anything, it's going to help create no nuisances, because we'll have someone on site. If something does pop up, someone will be able to attend to it right away.
D?
Adequate parking areas provided for motor vehicles on the premises. Again, there's more than enough parking spaces. It shouldn't affect it at all.
All right. Are there any questions, concerns, thoughts? All right. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to open this up to the public. Is there anybody that'd like to speak for or against this petition? All right, I'll close the public. That being said, do I have a motion, comments, questions?
Honestly, not seeing the need for this, but I will make a motion
Appreciate it.
to grant a special exception under Section 2.02.4, Section E3 of the zoning ordinance to permit an on-site caretaker's residence. The parcel is located at 248 Daniel Webster Highway in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 3D-2, lot 005-01.
Second.
Seconded by Tony. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0-0. Thank you. Have a great evening. You too. And last but not least, Tobin Farwell, petitioner, and Farwell Engineering Services, and Crystal Scott, owner, variance under section 3.05 of the zoning ordinance to permit a building addition to a single-family dwelling 6 feet from the side property line, whereas 15 feet is required, and 32.5 feet from the rear property line, whereas 40 feet is required. The parcel is located at 3 Loop Road in the C1 Commercial and Aquifer Conservation and Town Center and Elderly Overlay District, housing districts. Tax map 5D-4, lot 068-01, case number 2017-24. Hi.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. You if you can give us a quick, 5,000-foot view of what we're looking to do, and then we'll go right into the points.
Loop Road creates a loop off of the.
I'm sorry. Can you state your name for the record? I'm
For
sorry.
the record, my name is Tobin Farwell from Farwell Engineering.
Okay.
This is Crystal Scott, the owner.
Hi, Crystal.
Have you guys been sworn in, just out of curiosity?
I wasn't.
I was.
Okay.
I'm
Can you
presenting.
raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. You're all set.
Okay, so Loop Road makes a loop from the Daniel Webster Highway, and this is the residential, certainly the residential portion of the commercial district. This is a small lot created in 1950. It was subdivided in 1955. The house was built in 61. It's a 10,700 square foot lot, so it's a very tiny lot with pretty high setbacks on it. And we are proposing to build a what's the size of the addition? 52 by 18 addition. Some of the house will be removed in order to build this addition. The lower part will be a garage and a walkout basement and a single-story wood frame structure above.
Okay. If you could just do the 5 points, and we'll have questions, I'm sure, between each.
Sure. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. The proposed request does not create a safety issue to the public or nuisance, as all work is on private land. Emergency vehicle access can get there now, and that will continue after this project.
Questions? Number 2.
Number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the residential lot is in the limited commercial district. The ordinance, the setbacks seem to be talk about protecting or buffering the commercial use from the residential. And this is unique in that it does not have any commercial buffering to it. It abuts town land and other residential land. So the spirit of the ordinance is upheld because it should be able to limit the buffer because it's just residential to residential.
I do have a question. The owners of there's a house in front, am I seeing that right, correct from the,
There's a multifamily in front.
Yeah.
right? Have you had any conversation with the multifamily about this, what you're doing, and do you own the multifamily?
So you're sworn in first?
Should I tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, why don't you come on up, state your name, and you can just speak into the mic.
Travis Pelletier.
Okay?
So yeah, I've spoken with the tenant or the guy who owns the apartment in front on a regular basis. We chat just here and there. So he's got no problem with it, and we wouldn't be really we would be changing anything going to the front.
Okay.
We'd actually be staying within the frontage that we've already got and be going back away from any of the homes in the front.
Okay.
So and I think it's an apartment building in front, a lawyer's office, and then a rental apartment to the right. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Now might be a good time. We did create sort of a form letter and handed the plans around of what we were proposing. We did get the residential to the northeast. We did get a response from him. We didn't from the other properties. I'd like to submit that as
Unfortunately, it's something I need to have submitted with the paperwork
Ah,
unless
okay.
the board wants to.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter.
I believe you can read it in, though.
Okay.
You could certainly read it
If
in.
you want to pass the letter up.
Sure.
I would just read it in.
I'll read it in. I'll read it in for the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Gene Weston's house. Gene Weston's house. No, it was.
All right, so we're on, that was number 2. Number 3, unless there's any other questions?
Okay. Oh, I thought you're gonna read it in.
I'll read, during the
Yeah.
public hearing, I'll put it in.
Oh, okay.
I'll put it in.
Where are we? Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Granting this variance will allow the family to expand the house to a reasonable size. The addition includes a garage to allow the owners to keep their vehicles out of the snow and make the vehicle more accessible. These are benefits most residential lots have. I think that's pretty straightforward.
Number 4.
With the addition, for the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. With the addition, the value of the property will increase. The increase in value will not diminish surrounding property values.
Any questions? Right, number 5.
No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provisions and the specific application of that provision of the property because the ordinance states that the setbacks are there to provide a buffer from commercial uses from residential uses. The setback encroachment is towards town land, therefore there is no commercial use on the land and less of a buffer is warranted. This is a small lot with little area to expand. Some relief or an addition is required.
And then the second part of that?
2, the proposed use is a reasonable one because the proposed use is reasonable that allows the normal use of a residential lot. This was subdivided in 55 and built in 61 where houses were a lot smaller. The addition is reasonable size and allows the construction of a garage or a garage space to be used. In New England is a very nice thing.
Yes. Any questions, concerns? You feel that he's met the criteria? All right. Any other questions or concerns before you open the public, or to the questions to the petitioners?
I do have one question. I saw the letter. Did you also have a form letter that if they were against this proposal, they could sign it, or just the?
I guess we did not. If they felt so, they could certainly write the town some sort of against it letter, or they could obviously show up at the meeting. But based on Travis's discussion with them, it seemed that everybody was positive, and we did want to get it on the record.
No, I was just curious if you had
I'm
one yes
an
and one no.
optimistic guy. I'm always a yeah.
Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing, and I'm going to read this letter in from Paul C. English. He is Paul C. English.
Did he leave an address?
Address, it was 5 Loop Road. He's in a butter. I am in a butter. That's how it starts out. To the above address, and have seen the plans for the proposed remodel and addition to the existing house. The plan is prepared by Farwell Engineering Services and dated June 5th, 2017. By signing below, I have no objections to the proposed improvements as shown. Owner's signature, printed name is Paul C. English, 5 Loop Road, dated 6/21/17. Jillian, do we want this for our files? Okay, message. Is there anybody who wants to speak against this, or anybody else? And I close the public hearing. And from the board, questions, comments, motions?
I'll move that we grant the variance under Section 3.05 of the zoning ordinance to permit a building addition to a single-family dwelling 6 feet from the side property line, whereas 15 feet is required, and 32.5 feet from the rear property line, whereas 40 feet is required. The parcel is located at 3 Loop Road in the C1 Commercial and Aquifer Conservation and Town Center and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. I don't know if there's any more that you could have been in there, but that's it. Tax map 5D-4, lot 068-01.
Second.
Tony seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. Just remember, if you proceed with, people can appeal within the first 30 days, so if you proceed within the next 30 days, it is at your own risk after that. Good luck and congratulations.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
So, action items for discussion. Jillian, anything?
I will check and see when elections are supposed to happen. It will be either next month or August,
Okay.
but I'll look into that.
I think 3 of us are up for reappointment as well.
And who's up for reappointment?
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Do we have to meet?
What? I don't know. I might have to vet you out a little bit. Minutes, May 31st, 2017.
I move we approve as printed.
Second.
Seconded by Rich. And any other discussion items? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
No. Abstain.
And one abstention from Fran for some odd reason. She wants to stay. Thank
No,
you very much.
she's abstaining on the minutes.
Hang on the minutes.
No. So, minute approval was